Let's rock and roll.
Ready?
So, welcome to another episode of Tailor-Made Chaos, where we look into things, not just glory holes, to bring you the latest dirt on the fitness industry. Today, I'd like to introduce a long-term friend of mine, both from the Army and from the fitness industry, Scott. Morning, Scott. For those listeners who are not familiar with the Australian fitness market and may not know yourself, please introduce yourself, tell us where you're from and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so name's Scott Freeman, so I'm the CEO of EMF. So EMF has numerous different brandings, which is our EMF Fitness Centre, our EMF Performance Centre, EMF Performance and Recovery, EMF Junior. So it covers a lot of the branding under the umbrella of EMF. Started the brand EMF, which was Elite Military Fitness, back in 14 years ago, and started from a boot camp on the beach in Broadbeach. But prior to that, I was in the military, so I sort of left the military and started EMF.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll get to all of that, and I'm sure there's a bit of a back history there. So one of the things I like to do on this podcast is go back to the start where it all began.
Where it began. So I was born in Sydney, in Eastwood, and moved up here to the Gold Coast when I was 2. From there, I went to Ashmore State Primary and then Benoa State High School here on the Gold Coast. And I wasn't overly wasn't too into my school. I turned up. That was.
You're a sports kid?
I was a sports kid. I loved my sports.
Yeah. What sports were you into?
So I played for Queensland in the tennis when I was quite young. And then I was doing surfing and more individual stuff. I've loved to run and track and field, that sort of things. So I was a small kid, so I played a bit of footy, but I wasn't like a big kid, so it wasn't. Contact sport wasn't really for me back in those days.
But Scott, I've known you for a long while. I'd never say you've suffered from little man syndrome.
No, I've got some wit about me, so I actually learnt how to fight from a very young age because of my wit got me in trouble numerous occasions.
Better than me. I won my last fight by 50 metres. Problem is I did a hammy doing it. Mate, school, more into sport, and you obviously, always had that sort of physical background.
Yeah, I did a lot of cycling because that was how you got around to go to school. After school, I worked, and then I'd ride to and from. I did BMX racing as well, so I was quite fit all the way through school.
Yeah, so. Awesome. And your parents, what did they do?
So my parents, my old man, he's a carpenter, so he still works for me at the moment. So doing all our
the roles have reversed.
Yeah, handyman sort of work. So he's always been there, and he worked in the construction industry for a long time, and then. Obviously, when I started EMF, the business side of things, he just left and started helping me.
Yeah, cool.
So my mum worked for everyone pretty much around on the Gold Coast, so she did whole different jobs, cooking and that sort of thing.
Okay, so you'd say you were middle class growing up, mum and dad were blue collar, they worked.
Yeah, definitely. Mum and dad were blue collar, they worked. I didn't get driven to school. When it was raining, it didn't really matter. You're on the bike and off you go.
So there was no helicopter parenting. That's for sure.
No. From school, you go to work and you ride your push bike to work. So it was, you had to earn your way back in the day.
Yeah. Brothers, sisters?
I've got one sister, and she's been with me, pretty much my whole life. She had a couple of restaurants on the Gold Coast, and she's now living overseas in Cyprus.
Oh, cool. But you two, you've been close for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah. My sister and I have been close, pretty much, since inception, really.
Yeah. Well, better story than me and my sibling, but that's for another day. So, mate, you got through school. Anything eventful? You said you played tennis.
Played tennis
at a pretty high level, and surfing.
Yeah, I played tennis for Queensland. I think I stopped playing when I was 14, 15.
Yep.
It was more just a lot of time. My parents put a lot of money into me getting coached and playing, and I didn't really push forward down that venture because I just got sick of it and just wanted to change. So I went into surfing and enjoyed that sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, awesome. And I suppose that'll probably come to play as to why we're sitting here
Yeah.
with a golf club screen in the background
Yeah,
at the Gold Coast, but we'll get there.
My grandfather, I played golf as well, so he taught me how to play golf. It was something that I regularly came and played golf with him, so I did it since I was 7.
Yeah.
Not saying I'm any good, hence why the simulator's here.
You got to get some cheating in to keep up with
that's right.
those who are a bit more superior.
That's how you get your practice. So
good. So, mate, you finished year 12, yeah?
Year 12, yeah.
What happened then?
So in year 12, I think I missed about 70 days that I just wagged school, and so I got my certificate as a participation certificate.
Yeah. So you were never going off to be a doctor?
No. I didn't like studying. Don't know why. It's just one of those things that I just found I was either good at it or I wasn't. And so when I finished school, I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I was managing a coffee shop for pretty much 12 months. And one of my friends who joined the army after school, he came back and he had money and he had structure and he had all the things. I was like, wow, it's really cool. I knew nothing about the military, never fired a gun for my life, and I thought, well, if he can do it, why can't I?
Yeah.
So
So you went to recruiting?
Went to recruiting.
Sold the dream?
Sold the dream, and I was one day I've actually went out at night with a mate and got pissed, and I was pretty drunk. And the next morning I got a phone call from the recruiting agency. I got enlisted. And I sort of brushed it off because I was so hungover and didn't even remember that I got the phone call. Then the letter came in the mail saying that this is your enlistment date. I went, I actually don't remember that. So it was quite funny. And so then there
Probably
I was.
sets the scene for how long were you in the military for?
17 years I was in the military for. So it was quite funny. You turn up and I definitely didn't expect what happened at recruit school. You just...
I assume back in the day you had hair.
I did.
And day one you had a haircut that was pretty similar to this. I'm remembering.
Oh well, growing up in the Gold Coast, you turn up and I had long hair and an undercut, and so you get established from that surfy culture. You turn up and they're like, oh look at you, and so branded Gold Coast and surfy there at recruit school. Shaved the head, and I reckon I was 55 kilos wringing wet when I turned up to recruit school.
Wow. So, 18, 19?
18.
Yeah.
And
still a kid, basically.
Still a kid, basically, yeah. No muscle. I mean, to save my life. Could run, though.
Yeah.
And recruit school was quite good because back then it was 3 months for recruit school.
Yeah. So you were at Kapooka, yeah?
Kapooka, yeah. Yep. So I did my 3 months at Kapooka.
And was that kind of your first foray into fitness when you kind of got at Kapooka, or you were relatively fit from sport, but were you into fitness before the military?
No, when I was going through Kapooka, my fitness, like I could do anything. My run time for 5 kilometres was under 20 minutes, so it was just a natural habit.
18:34 was my best. I'm a long way from that now. Just saying.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know I was under 20, but it was definitely.
It's probably a long way under what I did.
Yeah. So it was quicker, especially being 55 kilos.
Yeah.
So I think I still run now 23 minutes for 5K. So
yeah, wow.
We're still enjoying it.
Good. So, mate, in Kapooka now, in the military, just explain for everyone what a corps is and what corps you went to.
So back in the day, you just signed up as general enlistment, which generally means you're going to go into infantry. Now they actually sign you up for different jobs. Huh? So you actually enlist for the job that you want.
Takes out the mystery.
I know, that's the whole thing. So for general enlistment, we were going to infantry. And our platoon, pretty much the whole platoon was going, we're all male. And then because of our aptitude test, 6 of us got told that we could be air defenders. So I asked my bombardier then, I said, what's air defence? He's like, well, he said, I'll give you a couple of things. You drive, you don't walk. So I said, oh, that's a positive. He said the School of Artillery is in Manly, Sydney, not Singleton. So you do 3 months in Manly instead of there. I went, well,
Tick number 2.
That's another positive. And he said, we generally, don't move around and because it's all based in Adelaide. I said, okay, well that's a pretty good structure right there. So I'm like, okay, well,
Sign me up.
So the 6 of us went into air defence, and from Wagga we turned up to Manly, the School of Artillery, and going from where there was someone to greet you, doing everything. We turned up there, got off the bus, and they're like, "See you Monday." It was Friday. What do you mean?
Again, another culture shock.
Yeah, culture shock. And go, okay, well, we're in Sydney, and there's your room, and off you go. So obviously we went out in Manly and had some good time. So yeah, it's definitely a really good thing going from really hardcore training into something a bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
And then we went straight from when we finished our core training, School of Artillery, we went straight on Kangaroo 95. So it was straight on exercise, flown up to Darwin and out field for I think 6 weeks. So it was, yeah.
I didn't realise you got in before me.
Oh really?
I was 95 as well, but
yeah, wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so it was such a good.
It's just I hide my youth better by the looks.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hidden behind these bags and.
You got to get some Botox, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely some years of different sort of training. People always ask me, how did you get here? And I guess there's a lot of, from different promotion courses, different training, everything over the years. It sort of makes who I am today. So it's not just, I just made up this sort of thing to go by it, EMF. It's sort of, there's a lot of
history that went into it.
History and knowledge that goes into the back end.
Yeah. So you went off on exercise. You were based in Adelaide. You went off on exercise. But how long did you spend in Adelaide before the next sort of chapter?
So I did 7 years. So I got promoted to full bombardier, I think after 5 years. And after promotion, I stayed at Adelaide for another 12 months and then became a recruit instructor. So back to Wagga for 2 years posting. And 9/11 happened actually the day I was leaving. So it was the day I sort of remember, I was packed my bags and...
Yeah, I was on my PDI course at that point in time.
Yeah.
So
so I was...
I don't think anybody will ever forget that day, where they were or what they were doing.
That's right. So that sort of means that you couldn't be, because you were Kapuka as a recruit instructor, you couldn't deploy to Afghanistan or Iraq. So, I mean, it was probably one of those things that for the next 2 years you're sort of in that, training the next soldiers that were going to war. And it was such a good, for me, training soldiers, from when they enlisted to then sending them and seeing their parents, they march out of Kapuka. I think we did about 7 or 8 different courses of platoon groups to go through over the tenure. Yeah. And my second year I was there, I did my adventure training course and ran the high ropes course at Kapuka.
Okay.
So that was my job for the second year while I was training for my PDI course.
Yeah. I was going to ask, is that what kind of led you to wanting to go to your PDI course?
Yeah, so my PDI course, I've always loved my fitness. And there we go. I did my subunit PDI course and got recommended for being a PDI, and there was 2 of us that did well. He got first, I got second, and I've always loved my fitness, so it was a really good test when I said, look, my boss turned around and said to me, like, well, you're at the peak of your fitness, why wouldn't you want to be SAS instead of being a PDI? And I said, look, to be honest, I said, I love the fact that the job is, you're working in a gym and you're doing the training of the soldiers, because I love the training of the soldiers here. And I said, I don't like going field. That's why I left there. I don't like going field. I don't like, the whole cam cream digging holes and all that, because the concept of digging a hole and then filling it back in to move somewhere else to dig another hole just doesn't fly.
It's like that that thing on the castle. What did you do today, son? I dug a hole.
Yeah, that's familiar. And people say, dig a hole. Wait 5 days and you sit there doing nothing, and you got to sit on picket and pretend that there's an enemy. At 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So that was something where I just said, look, I don't really want to go down that path. Being a PDI and have purpose is probably the best course for me.
Yeah, awesome.
I think the little red shorts was another, sort of added bonus.
Mate, there are some viewers that are very lucky that we're on video as well as audio in this this podcast. They get to see the frame of the man here. So
yeah, it was definitely a good thing when you finish the PDI course, because as you know, being a PDI, you're down at Cerberus and you're at your peak fitness, and you're doing 7-8 classes of fitness, plus running to and from the mess for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you're basically at the peak level of your fitness while you're doing the course as well.
yeah, no, it was. Age has wearied my level of fitness somewhat since those days. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great life, and I mean, you spent how long as a PDI?
7-8 years. So I deployed to Egypt for the MFO while I was a PDI. Which
Would have been a great experience.
It was a great experience. So running North Camp for all the soldiers, 26 countries was such a great, something.
And that camp was a huge camp, right? I'm kind of feeling like this may have started to plant the seeds of what EMF looks like in its modern day era, or
that one has your basketball courts, your tennis courts, just like Randwick Barracks, 50-metre pool, gymnasium, basketball court. So basically everything you want in a sort of big box gym.
Yeah.
Plus all your ovals and fields and everything else. I loved Randwick Barracks, running that for the eastern suburbs on my last sort of posting.
That was a great posting.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So as a PDI, I think, out of my tenure, I really enjoyed that. Working at Holsworthy was another great stint. So when I left my PDI course, I got posted to Randwick as a corporal, but then they moved me to Holsworthy.
Yeah.
So I was living in Maroubra Beach, and travelling to Holsworthy every day. So not a tough gig either.
Not the worst gig ever.
No.
So what was the sort of tipping point to move from the military to getting out and moving on with your life?
Yeah, so I had a 3-year posting at Randwick Barracks, and then sort of like the second year got to where I did all my promotion courses, and they were posting me on promotion to Darwin, and I just said, if you do that, my girlfriend at the time, she works in the medical industry, so she was, she's radiographer by trade, but she, in sales for medical, and she was earning $250,000, so much more than me.
Yep.
Okay, there's no way she's moving to Darwin. So
now you said girlfriend, as in you got rid of her, or did you put a ring on her finger?
No, I put a ring on her finger.
Cool.
Yeah. So now my wife.
Yeah. So we've got to talk positively about all
that's
this.
right. Yeah. So
because she's listening.
Yeah. So she stayed on, so which was a good thing, and we travelled the world numerous times, and we have now 2 beautiful boys in the family, so which is great. She's currently just down at Threadbow snowboarding, so I taught her how to snowboard, and she's down there at the moment with my 8-year-old. So he's
brilliant.
Yeah, so we love the snow, and so they're down there training. And I taught her how to snowboard, same as my little fella, taught him how to snowboard.
Yeah.
And then my youngest is 3.5, so he'll be getting on the slopes this year as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I guess that was kind of the tipping point, and you moved up to Queensland then.
Yeah, so it was...
and that's when our paths sort of recrossed again pretty soon.
So Kylie, my wife, she turned around and said, look, I asked her, I said, look, I can't start a business here in Sydney. Where do you want to go? And she said, well, Gold Coast is where your family is. Why don't we go there? I said, yeah, okay. So I moved up and used my leave in setting the business up. Basically drew up the logo and prepared everything to start. And it took a good 3 months for website and everything else to get this sort of site. also the site where I wanted to do the boot camp, so I had to go and find out and start some training there to see everything works. Walking around, putting flyers out, and just started getting that sort of business starting point, the marketing side.
Yeah.
And it took a good 2-3 months to get it off the ground. And I remember my first client turned up, and his name was Robert Garner, so I still remember to this day. Turned up, and he was training with my wife, so and then it sort of grew from there. And that was 2010, and it sort of got to a really good point where I wrote my business plan and about the boot camps and how it all starts. And then I was going to get to 3 or 4 boot camps, and then from there turning it into going into a gym, you know, changing the way that the fitness industry looks on the outside, because it, you know, seeing what the military does and then seeing how commercialised the fitness industry is. There's so much to learn on the commercial side, the public side, and so that's where I sort of went. Well, you know, it's such a great avenue to get into.
Yeah.
And then the business plan. My boot camp was very successful. I got it up to 150 people on direct debit, and just going through. It was morning and evening, 5:30 a.m., 5:30 p.m.
So very intense on you, but it was going well.
Going really well.
Yeah.
So good thing is you can have, you know, whether it's 5 people or 50 people in your boot camp, it's still only that 1 hour.
Yeah.
In the morning, 1 hour in the evening. So just more equipment, those sort of things. But you know, you could maximise your time and earnings based on, you know, boot camp.
Yeah.
And that was the best thing, because it's in the park. You didn't have too many outgoings, so it was quite a successful sort of business.
Do you ever regret
No.
changing? Okay, good.
No. I mean, leaving the military. I mean, some great mates in the military, but leaving on this sort of venture is, you know, been phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I haven't ever regretted it. I've always looked back and gone, I love my time, and I learnt so much from the military. So I wouldn't be here where I am today without my military career.
What do you think were some of the biggest takeaways from that time?
I guess it's what you put in, what you get out, and being, you know, a PDI or SAS or those high sort of profile people, you really put your time and effort into your job. So if you did that and you want to be successful, you know, as a PDI, we were trying to get the best equipment for our soldiers. We were always looking for the best sort of training for them. But not only that, it was then, during my tenure, there was CrossFit was such a big thing that came in. And I spent 12 months as a rehab PDI for the military. And I saw the injury rate go up about 22% with the physios out at Holsworthy.
Yep.
And it was trying to figure out you know, how we could sort of minimise the impact of what this CrossFit was doing to our soldiers.
Yeah.
And because it was just so high impact, same muscle group all the time, you know, the recovery just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I mean, recovery now is quite prominent, but back then we were still trying to figure out how we could utilise the recovery that we had.
Yeah.
So we had hydrotherapy bars, we had physios, you know, we could enhance the sort of training for our soldiers in terms of that rest and recovery, but you know, hot and cold pools. And
well, the military facilities to a degree were ahead of what the outside
100%.
commercial fitness was, and I assume we'll make a few leaps to that fairly soon. For people who don't understand, do you want to touch on how specialised and how few PDIs there are in the military? So they got an idea of, you know, at what level you had to perform to get into that position.
Yeah, so the military, I just touched the screen. So the military, as a PDI, when I was going through, it was such a select process. So there was 100 PDIs of Army PDIs throughout the Defence Force.
Yeah, which was about 20-odd thousand people.
Yeah.
So it was such a small percentage.
Small percentage.
Yet everybody wanted to be one.
Everyone wanted, because there was no
They
deployments.
hated them and loved them.
Yeah. Back then there was no deployment, so, you know, you couldn't go and earn that big sort of money. So everyone wanted to be a PDI.
Yeah.
So the selection process was very hard. You had to be number 1 or number 2 on your course, and you could only do it once.
Yeah.
Or your selection course for SAS, you could do it a couple of times. So your PDI course, your sub-unit course, you did it once and it was a 4-week course.
And you either came 1 or 2, or
Yep.
and that was it within the subunit.
Yeah. So
and then you were thrown into the hopper.
That's right. And you had to get a number, and so they take the top 6 from that and put them on the course. And the course is 6.5 months long.
Yep.
So it's very hard to get on the selection, and then once you get selected, you're doing this 6.5 months on selection for for the PDI course. And then you leave.
I think you learn a lot about your body during that time too, though. You know, in terms of, you were touching on injury prevention and recovery. I think you learn a lot about it at that point in time.
Oh, you do.
Because you were doing so much repetitive work.
So much. And that's the thing that I still remember. One of the, we did interval training, flogged us on, after a full day.
And it was always a flogging.
Always a flogging. Yeah, they push you to your limits for a good 45 to an hour of interval training. You've already ran so much. And the next day, the morning, they made us do it again. And it wasn't that point after doing it, they said to us, one thing you've got to take away from this is, see how sore you are now after we've done this. You are the fittest of the fit. This is why you don't do this to your soldiers.
Yeah.
So they teach, and I took that away from that, going, understanding rest and recovery from how much we hurt on our basic course.
Yeah.
So it was quite good.
Yeah, and I think that's probably built some of the fundamentals of what underlies EMF now.
Yeah, definitely. My biggest thing is my clients. EMF is not about a money-making exercise. It's about looking after each and every one of our clients. Because if they want recovery, they want different classes. It's all about them. So every dollar I've sort of earned, I put back into the business. I've never tried to.
With the exception of the golf training.
Oh, there's a few trips overseas.
A few things. But by and large.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely it's enjoyable life. It's still working hard, but you get some toys to be able to play with, along the way.
Mate, I often say working hard or hardly working, but I think that's a matter of perspective. I think we all work hard, but when you enjoy it, I don't think you're working that hard.
No, that's right. Yeah. And that's one thing about EMF is I love the brand that I built, and I love working in it every day. So it's.
So we hit a fairly pivotal moment. You were in the boot camp business, and then there is this transition to go into bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Well, I asked one of my mates to come up. He was doing boot camp down in Sydney. He was a clearance diver. I said, instead of doing that down there, why don't you come up and join me? Because I've got a gym that I'm ready to buy. Tony DeLead, he's fitness first. He was the owner of Fit and Fast, so I was buying the gym off him. And
there was 2 clubs you were looking at that
time. 2 clubs, yeah. So there was Paddington Fit and Fast and Harbour Town. Yep. So out of the 2. Good old Tony said that the sale price, I won't mention what the price was, and then he changed it. Good old Tony. But yeah, we bought couldn't afford to buy the 2, didn't have the money. So we ended up buying the 1 and rebranded and changed it. So it took some time to be able to do that.
So EMF, for those who don't know, what does that stand for?
Elite Military Fitness.
Yeah. Okay. So that really brings that heritage of the military into it.
It does, yeah. And that's what EMF and the boot camps was all about, the training. And in the boot camps, because it was 5-6 days a week, there was still that rest and recovery on the odd days, so that I made sure that my training plan was to suit the rest and recovery. And that way, when we went into buying the first gym, it was EMF Fitness Centre. So, one of the key concept I've thought about when branding was a 3-letter acronym. I mean, it's a big thing in the military.
Yep.
So turning
There's a TLA for everything, a 3-letter acronym.
That's right. So using a 3-letter acronym for a brand is quite easy, and it's recognisable.
Yep.
So that's why everywhere you see, across EMF, it's the same brand, same everything, so that you get used to that brand awareness.
Well, I did comment it as you came into the room, but this is probably the first time I've actually seen you in a branded shirt.
That's right.
Very professional for this podcast. That's how we work on Tailor Made Chaos. All profession.
I don't get into wearing EMF shirts often, because when I do, I'm in the gym, not only do people see that I'm working, they try and grab me and talk, but
It's the hardest place to work out is your own club, right?
That's right.
Even if you got the big fuck off earphones on,
Yeah.
it doesn't always work.
No, and that's why I train at 5 in the morning every day, because I can get my training out of the day before my phone. I mean, my phone's rung 6 times since we've been sitting here talking. So it's one of those things that throughout the day you are quite busy. So if you put on a shirt and start walking through the gym, people grab you and you're
more recognisable.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
The head's already recognisable from the baldness, but putting on a shirt as well is quite funny.
Well, it's good to see you've maintained the haircut from recruiting.
That's right. I've kept it the whole way through.
Yeah.
But I've put on a beard now because the day I left the military was the day I stopped shaving. So it was. I still trim the beard, but I've
kept most of the discipline.
Yeah, that's right. I still trim it.
Yeah.
So,
very good. So, mate, you opened the first site, and your business partner came up.
Yep.
So tell us about the next few years after that.
Yeah. So then
You obviously learned a lot.
Learned
in
a lot.
First club.
Yeah, my accountant told me a stupid idea, so I sacked him.
Good plan. Yep.
But
because we looked at the numbers stacked up.
Yeah, the numbers stacked up as soon as you look at it, and all you had to do was work out how the staffing and everything is going. It wasn't about the sales. The sales was easy. It was about the retention. And retention is something that you can earn from your customers. If they see value in you being there, they see value in staying. And that's the key concept of EMF is make sure your customer's happy.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's any disrespect to the previous,
No.
incumbent. There were multiple sites that they were operating and running, but I think, your focus on retention was probably the key thing that turned that club.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were some other factors which we'll touch on.
Desk, yeah. Yep. Lee and I worked on the front desk as well, so a lot of the customers got to see that.
Yep.
And I'm OCD, so putting equipment away, was such a pertinent thing for me, and still is. Where if someone uses weight, you take it off, so you don't have a 40, 50 kilo woman trying to unstack a 400 kilo leg press.
Look, there was a stat I read, and I forget the report. I'm not good at remembering or citing the reports, but a number of years ago that said basically the number one reason people cancel their membership aside from moving is cleanliness.
That's right. So a big focus for the cleanliness came into focus. My parents did the cleaning for Harbour Town for us, so it was and I tell you, my mum, she's very.
She's OCD as well.
Oh, she's OCD, and she'll tell you when something's not right. I'll tell you.
Nice.
Yeah. So the cleanliness was spot on. So day one, and that was something that everyone got used to being. That was our forte.
Yep.
EMF. So then there was an Anytime Fitness that went under in Surfers Paradise.
Okay.
I think the light rail was going on, and it just had a problem. So sort of went under, and they locked the doors. And a friend of ours was a PT there. Let us know, and I went and had a look at the site, and I said, look, I was in discussions for Pacific Fair, trying to get that off the ground. That took quite a considerable time to try and get over the line for us to be in Pacific Fair. And I said, well, if that one falls through, we've always got Surfers Paradise. It wasn't a big club, 450 square metres. But we did we bought the equipment off the previous supplier. We did all the flooring, so the renos we did ourselves. My old man did all the bathrooms. So, I mean, we worked and lived and breathed that site. And then we still worked the desk and still doing the boot camps while doing it.
Right. So this is all fairly early stage, and we're now at site number
26, I think. Yeah, roughly.
26,
Yeah.
right? So there's been a fair growth. Was that always on the cards? Was that always part of the plan, or?
I was planning for progression, but it wasn't ever the expansion plan for where we are today. It was just continually just doing what you can, and really enjoyed the opening and the structure, and the more sites, you limit the amount of how many people you lose for that I'm moving. So the more sites you have, the more concept you have of retention as well.
Yeah.
And
I guess it helps build the strength of that brand as well.
It does, yeah. So I mean, then no one really knew what or who EMF was. And then we did Pacific Fair, which was a fantastic site. That was our first greenfield that we actually built from zero. And I had this concept of putting this pool across from between two tenancies, right on where the logo of Pacific Fair is, and it would have looked amazing. So I pitched it to them before they were building it, and they look, the architect was set in his ways, and they look back now and go, it would have been.
We wish we had.
Exactly.
Because it would have been more iconic.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the leasing agent who was hearing me talk about this, he left from Pacific Fair and went to Robina Town Centre, and he said to the guys, look, I've got this operator that wants to build a pool, wants to do this, something phenomenal. I think you should meet with him. So I sat down and met with them and said, look, this is my idea. I said, can you build it here? So I can for the right amount of money. So I got a great deal on the site, and we were the first to build a pool, above a loading zone. So it's 25 metre pool, quite heavy, and then we had a 3,300 square metre gym. Altitude rooms, Pilates reformer. It was probably the best in its class at the time, which is about 7 years ago.
Yep.
And that sort of set us on the journey that EMF sets us apart from everywhere else. We were starting to get recognised.
Yeah.
And it was quite significant because I lost a builder during the build. We ran out of money, so we had to basically beg, borrow and steal from myself. My best mate lent me 150 grand just to get the thing open.
Yeah.
The stress, I didn't have a builder who was structured. I was basically the project manager for the site to try and get it all done.
Yeah.
We opened with half the flooring that didn't show up, so it was quite significant.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a great journey to be able to go through that. And I mean, every build now is significant, but it's a lot less stressful than that one.
Kind of got the path
down
pat and the project management down pat.
Yeah, I've got a really good builder, so from there, I brought my builder on with me, so he's basically project managed together. So we do from the lease to the design, and then every EMF's different. And the reason I do it differently is so that, I mean, you can walk into any time or a franchise and get the same sort of gym, and you know that. Whereas EMF, if you've got 5 in one suburb, being the Gold Coast, well, I think we've got 8. Each one has a different look, type, and feel. Because every demographic's different, whether you're by the beach or you're out in Coomera. Very big different demographic, 10 k's away.
Yeah. Look, one of the brands I really like, and it's totally unrelated to this, but a small relation is that John Reed Health Club. That every club you go to is very different. I think what you managed to maintain, that was the key characteristics in each one of the clubs that you have, that whilst they're different, they have different offerings, there's still a lot of key features and brand quality that makes you feel like you're in an EMF.
Yeah.
Is that something that's intentional?
Oh, definitely, because for me, I don't want to cheapen the quality of the equipment or what we do as classes for our members, because that's the key part of EMF, is making sure that the members are looked after.
Yeah.
And we don't have where I can put the best cardio equipment I do, where I can put the best functional training equipment, the best plates, so that they don't break, best dumbbells, the best strength equipment. The size of the gym is pertinent to whatever I can. People say, well, how much space do you want? I say, how much can you give me?
Yep.
So that's the biggest thing, is trying to maximise it for the clientele.
Well, we're sitting in one of those big projects now. This is the golf room in Nerang, but for people who haven't been there, can you give some sort of a quick scope on the scale of what Nerang is? Because this is the biggest club you've done, right?
This is the biggest. So it was, I think, number 8 or 9, and it's an old Masters site. So when the Masters went under, there's a lot of vacant tenancies that came up. This was one that Homecode didn't want in their portfolio. And I drove past it one day and I said, I love this space. And it was outdoor, indoor. So when you find a person to buy it, let me know. I can't afford to buy it, but I'd certainly love to be a tenant. And this is 5,500 square metres. So in terms of the size, it's pretty much triple the majority of size of big box gyms in Australia.
Yeah.
So we have in here, we've got an EMF Junior, which is about 1,000 square metres with a cafe, massive kids playground, Ninja Warrior course. We've got dry recovery room that has fish tanks in it. So reception has a fish tank, and the recovery has a fish tank. Got a golf room here. In my design, it was a golf room. I did want to try and see how I can incorporate it to the commercialised thing, but I never got around to, so I just enjoy this as my personal golf simulator.
And personal podcast room.
Yeah, exactly. So, and my staff love to come in here and use it as a storage room as well. So it serves many purposes. I've got an outdoor training area which has, full rig, 25-metre outdoor magnesium pool, hot and cold pools. So this is the first one we did with the hot and cold pools. Steam room, sauna, altitude training rooms. You've got large boot camp sort of training room, 3 dedicated spin, running and rowing altitude rooms. We had a spin room, but we got rid of it to enlarge our Pilates reformer room, a big boxing room with an MMA cage, and then probably one of the largest gym floors that you could possibly have.
Yeah. No, it's a very impressive facility, but I think that's probably one of the more impressive things is the amount of people that you've got here in terms of trainers and
the
staff
demographic
and everything here. I'd like to say that's probably one of the signatures for you is the relationships you build and the team that you've built. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you go about having that strong team?
So I guess the key concept is they've got to be behind your brand. They've got to live and breathe it. So the concept for me is like a very military. You've got to be good at all aspects of the job.
Yep.
Same as our staff on the front desk. Taking the aspects of the military and saying, okay, well, you've got to be a salesman. You've got to be a retention expert. You've also got to handle the hot-headeds that come in and want to argue. So you've got to have every facet of what a person of a front desk should be like. And I say to my team, I don't want to be a pushy salesman. That's not a job that we want to be in. And John Gearan, who's been a friend as well, you know him in the military days, and he said to me once, and he's a salesman. He said, you've got to listen to your customer. If they say, I want to see the facilities, let them see it. Say, I want to hear about your facilities, tell them about it. So
listen to what they're saying.
Yeah, listen to what they're saying. So if you do that and you take away what they want to do, and if they walk in and say, hey, I want to sign up, here you go, sign up. So you don't need to go through the whole sing and dance, for every single person in the same sort of mindset.
Yep.
If, asking someone, what do you like in a facility? Showing them that they have a great weights room and say, do you have a missus? Do you know we have, kids facility as well next door for your kids? Do you know that, we have Pilates reformer for your wife? We have a ladies only room, for that safety of 24 hours. So every one of our facilities is 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's some of the secret sauce in there as to the success of how EMF has continued to grow. Probably a bit of a harder chapter to talk about, but I'd like to kind of get to the post-COVID period. Obviously, that period was tough, but then you've gone through what I would think is a divorce of sorts. Can we touch on a little bit of that?
Yeah, so COVID for me, being that I was all the finance and leasing and everything was very stressful. So I was listening to every Prime Minister and every state leader talk about what there was, and there were so many disconnections from what they were doing. So post-COVID was, we came out of it quite well. We were doing 3 builds at the time. And it was, great to be able to open day one after COVID. So out of, in the fitness industry, we came out quite good. After that, it was working with my business partner. We got to a chapter where it just didn't work anymore. So it was more or less, we were great mates, and we just got to a point where we weren't seeing eye to eye in business. So these are the things that sort of happen. It's like divorce, you're husband and wife, and you get to a point where you don't see eye to eye, and you don't work well together anymore.
It's better off for the kids to separate.
That's right, yeah. So our kids, we talk about as, our clients being staff and our members. So in the end, it's sort of the next journey for, EMF is now just as myself at their helm.
So I know there was some plans, going back a couple of years ago for the company. Now that you've gone through that separation and you're now taken on the business wholly, what's the next path for EMF? Are you in a rebuilding phase, or are you looking to go down some other route?
Oh, look, I'm still looking at the path of continuing what we were doing on the whole journey. So, my whole structure is to try and keep pushing forward for the members and making sure that it's always doing the best I can. And while the brand is still hot on the lips of many customers and also leasing agents and everywhere else, where I can build it and keep the business successful, I will. So, I mean, there's no slowing down. There probably will be a little bit of a slowdown over the next 12 months due to the fact that I haven't got any leasing sort of done, and it takes 12 months before whatever pipeline you sort of have to get into that building phase again. So over the next 12 months, I'll be looking at different sites and where to take EMF to the next level.
Okay. And what's next for Scott Freeman?
Look, for me, I still enjoy what I'm doing, so I still train every day. I don't know. I think the next part of my journey is just working out how much I just want to try and get that work-life balance sort of back. That's probably a key over the next 12, 24 months.
Well, keeping that marriage is
right,
an important part.
That's right, yeah. Keeping
and spending time with the two boys.
That's right, keeping the family happy.
Yeah.
So, keeping the brand happy, but keeping the family happy as well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Where do you see in the next 5 to 10 years the direction that the fitness industry is going to go?
Yeah, so I guess the next 12 months is probably a crucial part for the fitness industry. We're already seeing what inflation's doing to the nation. I mean, if it cripples restaurants and the likes of shopping centres and those key ones for CPI increases that go up on all the shops, I don't know if it's going to impact the health and wellness sort of industry, because I mean it is still quite a cheap service. I mean, you go out and buy a beer for $15, whereas your membership's roughly around your $25.
Yeah, so, and people quiver over $25 or $30 a week.
That's right.
So where you get used to facilities like what you talked about before, plenty of staff that care. It's quite unbelievable.
Yeah, so I think that the next 24 months will be a stabilisation in the fitness industry, just trying to get through the inflation. I think then once that sort of occurs, I mean, the big players are still going to be there. The small ones will probably filter out, your Fit Stops, your F45s, the small box sort of gyms where there's so many competitors and it's so easy to go into that space. I mean, me personally, if I wanted to set up my own studio, it's not that expensive to go in to compete.
The barriers to entry are less, but the potential return potentially less as well.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got the Yard, you've got Fit Stop, you've got F45. I mean, Barry's Boot Camp. There's so many in that sort of small box that are fighting just to stay afloat. So they're the sort of ones I sort of feel for. The big box sort of gyms like ourselves, World Gym, Total Fusion, Fitness First and Good Life, I don't see there being a problem for those sort of big box, because there is that need for that big box gym. And I see the transition in the industry. We went from big box, Fitness First, Tony DeLead in his day, made a monster of money, and then they all went down to the small 24-hour, your Anytimes and your Snap and your Jets, F45, boomed. I think now people realise that they don't just want to pay, for like a F45, $60, $70 for a class that you can get an EMF, as well as the rest of the services. So I dare say that the shift is still going to be with the big box. Because if you can have Pilates reformer, a pool, your weights room, you can transition through all your recovery and also your fitness all in one. So,
well, you listed some of those big brands before, the big spot clubs, and I had a conversation fairly recently with another CEO of another group, and they kind of felt that there was enough differentiation between each of those brands that whilst they're under the banner of big box, there's enough integration or differentiation between them. So
100%.
I think EMF differs from some of the others. Do you want to touch on why?
Yeah, look, when we opened, so I'll take Cooma for a prime example. A lot of people question on how 3 big box gyms can work in one suburb. And you've got your Good Life, you've got your World Gym, and you've got EMF. And we're all working quite well. So we differ. I mean, our demographic is for everyone. You know, we try and look after everyone and every type of person, not just your fitness professionals, but also your rehab and your elderly and whoever we can, the kids, to try and get them in. When people say who's your target, I say, well, we don't have one. We target everyone. So we try and get that difference, but it's more or less just saying that whilst we're different, we can all survive in the same area.
Wonderful. Well, Scott, as usual, well, actually not as usual. We're sipping coffees instead of
beers.
Instead of beers or wine this time.
That's
But funny story on the last podcast, it involved some wine. The camera shut off halfway through, and we had to reshoot the whole thing. But that's a whole different thing. Today was much more professional. We had business shirts. We had coffees.
Yeah, that's right.
It's at a gym.
Yeah, that's right.
I always enjoy sitting down and getting some insights with you.
Thanks, mate. Always a pleasure.
Anything else you want to? Any scoops that you've got? Any scoops that you've got for the release? They say watch this space. That's pretty much all I can say. I love it. We always like to get the listeners back in. So that's it from me. Thanks again to Scott and to EMF Narang for hosting us. We'll be back for another episode of Tailor Made Chaos very, very soon.
Thanks, mate.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. That was all right?
Yeah, it's good.
Good. Oh. Yeah, like I said, I like to keep them sort of flowing and
Yeah, mate, it was good.
you interject a bit.